My name is Dieudonné Baributsa. I'm a team manager for the Purdue Improved Cowpea Storage, which is a project based at Purdue University. This project has been operating in 10 countries in West and Central Africa, and those countries include Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Niger, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Chad. And the purpose of the project is to improve the cowpea value chain. And what we are trying to do is to help farmers improve the storage of their cowpea, which is black-eyed peas. That's how we call them in the US. So, and farmers have a huge challenge in promoting or preserving their cowpea because of small insects called bruchids. And those are, the scientific name is Callosobruchus maculatus. And the reproduction of those insects is so fast that it's really difficult to keep pace with them. So if you have a small infestation in your cowpea, in a matter of 4 or 3 months, you might have millions of those insects in your bag. And so this creates a huge challenge for farmers. So what they do at harvest, they either sell their cowpea right away, and that creates a problem because later when they need the cowpea for home consumption, they will not have enough, or they use insecticides. And so as we know, many of these farmers are illiterate, so they don't know how to use chemical. So they end up overusing or misusing insecticide, and that creates a lot of health hazard. So and farmers have tried different methods. For example, they have tried to use metal drums. They've tried to use plastic jerry cans. They tried to use ash. And the challenge with those different methods, it's the cost and the scalability. For example, if you're trying to use ash, you have to have a 50-50 volume. And it's really hard to get a lot of ash if you're trying to store, for instance, 1 ton of cowpea. And for the metal drum, the other method, for example, metal drum and chemical, it's the issue of cost. So if you're buying a metal drum that can store 200 kilo, it costs $20 compared to other methods. So then in the 80s, Purdue University went into northern Cameroon. A professor at Purdue named Larry Murdoch went to northern Cameroon to try to work with farmers and develop a more cost-effective technology. So based on what farmers were doing, he was able to develop this triple layer bag. He was able to develop these triple layer bags, which is a plastic bag. So the external bag is just a woven sack. It's just a bag that farmers use to store many crops, and this is available on the market. So the technology comes into the inside bags, which is a triple layer bag. So you have 3 bags. So you have this woven sack, which is a just regular woven sack, polypropylene, and then you have a high density polyethylene bags, which are 2 of them. And so what they do, they help protect the cowpea for up to 1 year. And so what farmers do, they put the cowpea in the first liner and set the first liner into the second one. They put small amount of cowpea in the first liner and set the first liner into the second one, and then in the woven sack. So that helps a lot. So after that, they fill the bag. Once they fill the bag, then they are able to store their cowpea for more than several months. So, and if you look at the woven sack, we usually have drawings. These drawings, they help farmers. They show them how to put the cowpea. So you put a small amount in the first bag and set in the second liner, and then put in the second bag, and then you continue pouring, and then here you twist, and once twisting, then you tie. And they can tie with anything, like these old tire tubes. They cut them, and then they tie the bag or a string or anything they can find. And so this has been very, very effective. So going back to the project, we've been working in 10 countries in West and Central Africa. So the target was to reach 28,000 villages. And in the last 5 years, we have reached more than 31,000 villages. And so the other component, so that was on the extension activities. So we are trying to build the supply the demand of the technology by doing extension activities. And then on building the supply side, because it doesn't really help farmers if we can teach them about a technology, how to use a technology, and they cannot find it in the market. So our approach is a bit different. We try to build the supply, so even after the project, the farmers could still find the product on the market. So we work with the private sector to develop the supply chain. So we work with local manufacturers in West Africa. We work with agro dealers or ag input dealers in West Africa. And then we work with small vendors in rural area. And so what happens is the vendors go to the manufacturer, they buy the bags, and then they retail the bags through their distribution network. And those bags go all the way to the village level. So, and the supply chain, that's where we're having most of the challenges, because in most Africa, business is done on trust. So in order for me to give you my goods on credit, I need to know you, and I need to be sure that I will get my money back. So because the legal system are so weak, so we have to deal with that issue. And the way we have been trying to get around it, it's building social trust among the vendors and the agro dealers, the distributors, so they can pass on the goods on credit. And so we tried to do the adoption studies, and farmers were complaining about the availability of the product on the market. So, and price was not an issue in all the countries. So our biggest challenge now, what we are trying to do is trying to work, for example, with NGOs to see if they can help to train and inform farmers' organization and farmers where the bags are sold in different communities, and also facilitating the access of this technology to farmers. For example, we know they have sometimes funds to assist farmers in improving their livelihood, and what we have been proposing is to go through the distribution system rather than buying the bags at the national level, so they can strengthen the supply chain. Now, we have developed this technology for cowpea, and farmers have been asking a lot of questions. Can we use this technology for storing maize? Can we use it for storing dry beans? Can we use it for storing sorghum? Can we use it for storing millets, and so on? So what we are doing now, we are testing this technology to store other grain, like maize, like peanuts, dry beans, and so on. But we have to ask ourselves some questions. Because cowpea is in the dry area, we didn't think more about drying. But when you go, you try thinking about storing maize, you have to think about the humid tropic, because that's where you find most of the maize. So drying grain humidity, it's a huge, huge challenge, grain moisture. So that's where we are thinking, okay, how low do you have, or how far do you have to dry the grain to put them in the PICS bags? So we are doing experiment on those type of aspects. The other aspect people have to think about, it's the economics. So cowpea, it's a high commodity crop in West Africa. It's involved in trade. So storing for 3 to 4 months, the price goes double or triple. But if you're talking about other crops such as maize or dry beans, there are places where storage doesn't really make a huge difference. The prices don't change much. So are there incentives for farmers to store their grain? We don't really know. So we have to look into the economics to see if it makes sense to develop, to push the technology. Because our approach is more on the sustainability side, develop a system that will stay there after the project. And as long as the vendors are not making the money, as long as those who are into the supply chain are not making the money, it's going to be difficult to develop the supply chain. I would like to mention that this project started in the 80s under the funding from the USAID Dry Pulse CRESP. So, and I would like to acknowledge the Gate Foundation, because they provided the grant to implement this project. It's been a project for the last 5 years. And they also provided another grant to test the technology for use on the other crops.